Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you here, all of you, here on Dojo Live, connecting experts like you. And as ever, I'd like to thank my fellow teammate, Tulio in Los Angeles. Tulio, hi.
Hey,
It's great to have you here again, Tulio.
checking in from a chilly Los Angeles this morning.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, cool. And doing her debut as a co-host, we have Dulce Luna. Dulce in our Hermosillo office. Dulce, good to have you here, Dulce.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here for the first time.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of fun and we're going to get to meet Gray. We've been talking for a couple of minutes now, but it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it is. It is, Dulce. Trust me.
Welcome.
And by the way, Dulce, thank you for joining us in such a short notice. I know it was short notice.
It's fine. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, last but not least, I'd like to introduce and announce our today's guest. We're going to be having a conversation with Mr. Gray Somerville. Gray Somerville. He is the CEO of Launchpath.io, which is a web-based employee innovation platform that for organizations that believe their people and value innovation. Gray, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, Carlos. It's really great to be on Dojo Live. I have been so impressed by your program and humbled by the incredible guests that you've had in the past. I'm in great company for sure.
Absolutely. You're going to be sharing the spotlight. You're part of the roster of awesome guests. So yeah, welcome to Dojo Live. And okay. Great. Two things before we jump into something else is, can you tell us and the audience a little bit about you and of course, about Launchpath, how it came about to be, and then we'll move on to today's chosen topic. Please.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I have been a serial entrepreneur for the past, I guess, 19 years now. I have been either the founding CEO or one of the first three people on three different technology startups. So that's kind of been what I've been doing for the past 19 years. But before all that, I was an entrepreneur. I was kind of early in my career. I was working at kind of a lower middle management level within a larger organization. This was back in the late 1990s. But I identified an emerging market opportunity that was adjacent to the one that my company was currently serving, and took action on that. Was able to, with the help of a lot of other people, was able to eventually develop that into a new division of our company, which came to represent about 20% of the revenues of the company. It was a life-changing experience for me. It was a very good thing for my company, and really changed the trajectory of my career. So that was about 1998, so 20 years ago that occurred. And I think that there's always been sort of a little wheel turning in the back since that, asking the question, why isn't there more of that? When I became an entrepreneur, I'd never even heard that term. I didn't know that such a thing existed. I sort of, through a little bit of luck, kind of landed in this role, but no one had ever suggested to me that there was a possibility for doing this. And so even though there was almost no guidance for that, almost no vision for that, it sort of accidentally happened for me. But it left me wondering, why is such a positive thing not happening more often? So when I exited my last company, which was back in 2014, and thought about what's the next big project I would like to work on, what's the next big problem I would like to really dig in and try to solve, my mind went back to that experience. And I thought, if I could be part of enabling entrepreneurship, this incredibly win-win synergistic relationship between employers and between employees, that's what I would really like to do. So I partnered up with a couple of people, and we founded Launchpath. And Launchpath's mission is to inspire and enable entrepreneurship around the world. And that is what we're doing. So just tell you, briefly about LaunchPath. LaunchPath is it's a technology-enabled entrepreneurship program. If you, if you're the CEO of a company with, let's say, 100 or more employees, and you like this idea of harnessing the energy, the entrepreneurial passion of your employees, but you're not quite sure how to do that, or it seems like it's going to potentially create, difficulties for you, LaunchPath provides a simple, affordable way of making that happen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gray, for elaborating on LaunchPath and your background. So I'd like to pass on the mic to Dulce, please.
Sure. I'm glad that you started talking about entrepreneurship because it's a word that none of us have heard before, or at least me, I haven't heard about this word before. So we're going to be talking a lot about entrepreneurship. So for us mortals, what does it mean? What it takes to be an entrepreneur person?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking the question, Dulce. I do a lot of speaking on entrepreneurship, and I always poll the audience and ask people to raise their hand if they've ever heard the term entrepreneur or entrepreneurship. And if I'm speaking to a professional audience, about 2/3 of the people raise their hand. And then I trick them by saying, okay, now keep your hand up if you feel like you could stand up and give a definition of it. And all the hands go down. So I think you're not alone that even though some people may feel like they've heard this term, very, very few people feel like they could confidently define it. So you can kind of guess that entrepreneur sounds like entrepreneur, right? And the simplest way to, I think, express it is that an entrepreneur is an internal entrepreneur. So this is an employee of an established organization who looks beyond the constraints of their job description to proactively seek out, and this is the important thing, execute on innovative opportunities for improving the operations of their company, for expanding current lines of business into new market niches, or creating entirely new lines of business altogether. And if I can just maybe give an example or two to sort of take that abstract definition and make it a little bit more concrete. Some famous examples, Paul Buchheit, who was employee number 26 at at Google, and the creator of Gmail. Paul Buchheit is a very well-known, kind of celebrated example of an entrepreneur. When he finished his very first project at Google, Gmail was his idea. It wasn't something that had been planned in a top-down way, and he was just working on the project. He raised this idea with his leaders and said, this is what I would like to work on. There are much more, there are examples all over the place. Now that you kind of know the idea, you probably know people that start coming to mind of like, oh, okay, that person was an entrepreneur. So anyway, lots of more humble, less well-known examples, but Paul Buchheit is a great one.
Great, awesome. So I have one more question. For me, as a CEO or a leader of a company, why is it important for me to have entrepreneurs at my company?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of things that I have to say about this, as you can easily imagine, but I would say at the highest level, there are sort of two big reasons why a CEO or any leader of an organization would want entrepreneurship. First and foremost is to drive growth, to drive innovation, right? Everything that, every business that's out there, everything that's making money today is going to die in the not too distant future. The average lifespan of a business in America is only 10 years. And so you have to be creating the new. You have to be doing that. And of course, the way that many organizations do that is what I would call top-down innovation. They've got strategic plans. They've got forecasts. They develop teams and kind of marshal those troops to do that. But if you think about that, that's a little bit like a planned economy, like there used to be in the Soviet Union, where only a handful of people are the ones who are supposed to have all the big ideas and all the smart insights and figure out what we're going to do over the next 5-10 years. Entrepreneurship taps into the insights and the energy of the entire company. And this, for a large organization, this might be thousands and thousands of company. And that's a little bit like a free market economy. You're drawing on the things that people are seeing from their level. Let me give you another just quick example of a real live entrepreneur success story. A dear old friend of mine grew up in Brazil, came to the United States to go to college, got a job in the very earliest days of the wireless industry in about mid-1990s. He had a pretty humble job. He was an internal sales rep for this company that was based strictly in the United States. They provided engineering services to the emerging cellular market. But because of his Brazilian background, he could see that all the things his company was doing in America were equally relevant in Brazil. He had some contacts there. He started working with the engineers and the marketing people to put together a plan to start offering those services in Brazil. And he ended up opening the Brazilian market for this company and growing it into about 20%, 30% of the revenues of the company, about $30 million a year for a company that was doing, $100 to $150 million a year. So the CEO would have been very wise to activate that entrepreneurship. It had a huge impact there. So that's reason number one. At the risk of going on too long on my favorite topic, I would say driving growth is one. I would say the other thing is, in today's economy, it's all about the talent, right? The best people can work from anywhere and they can work for anyone. And so if you want to be a long-term winner in the 21st century, you have to find a way to create an environment where the very smartest, most motivated, most productive people want to work. And if you are operating a company where you're saying to every employee, look, in this organization, come join us, get into the harness with us and help us think the big thoughts and make the big things happen here. And if you're the one who has the big idea and has the energy to do that, we'll get behind you. We'll get behind your big idea. That creates an environment where really smart, really hardworking, really capable people want to work.
Great, awesome.
Great to hear from you again. So it's a little bit of echo, which is
some echo.
But anyway, it's interesting. 20 years ago, I was global account manager for Capital Cities ABC, and one of the shows, the Regis and Kathleen show at the time, decided they were going to test a live 1-800 number to get the audience to fax in something, right? And it was the first time on live television that this was being done. About 2 million attempts happened at the same time, and it crashed the New York telephone network for like 4 hours. And what came out of that was a friend of mine and I getting together with operations and what essentially became Signaling System 7, which was a new way to manage that kind of challenge. And it changed the telecom industry forever. I mean, now it's such a trivial thing. Everybody just calls an 800 number. It's no big deal. But what I'm interested to ask is, there's always been pockets of entrepreneurships of companies that have usually come out of solving some client problem or what have you. But what you've done with your technologies, you've sort of institutionalized it. Can you talk a little bit about that? How do you go about institutionalizing entrepreneurship where it's something everyone can participate in?
Right. Yeah. Thanks so much for the question, Tulio. Let me say that when my team formed up, which was in 2014, to start solving this problem, we really had no idea how we were going to solve the problem. We just knew what the problem was at a very high level even. And so the first thing that we did was we began working with a wide variety of organizations, with for-profit, nonprofit, a wide range of industries and sizes, and really digging in deep to the problem domain to find, this thing that was such an obvious, positive, good relationship between employer and employee. Why isn't it happening already? Why isn't it more common? And So, I think what we were hoping was that we were going to find that it was just like one little tiny thing. And if we solved that one thing, bam, the linchpin would be pulled and entrepreneurship would start to flow. But in fact, what we discovered is it's a lot of little things. It's kind of a systems failure problem. And I'll just kind of briefly highlight some of those. So one is a lack of a clearly defined path to entrepreneurship or process, right? So let's imagine that you're a typical employee in an organization. You have a big idea and you go to your boss with that big idea. In the vast majority of organizations, your boss doesn't know what to do with your idea. There's no defined program for that, right? So they've already got 100 emails in their inbox. They're already 2 weeks behind on big projects. And so they say, let's talk about that when we have our next, little 30-minute talk. So we have that talk, and then your boss says, why don't you kind of develop that into some sort of pitch, and we'll run it up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes. Well, so you put a lot of work into that. You run up the flagpole. Nobody above you knows what to do with this either. It creates confusion for them. They don't have a path for what to do with this. So that's an example. Another example of what we discovered is even if you had a clearly defined process for the entrepreneur, they knew exactly what the route was to success, they often haven't had the training or educational background to do that. They may have a brilliant idea, but they don't know how to translate that into the business concepts that managers need to evaluate the idea, right? A lot of times the ideas are out of alignment with leadership. Leadership needs some way of saying, look, if we're doing this, how can I do it without it creating distraction and problems? So anyway, we identified about a dozen different things that I would say are kind of very obvious, very painful barriers to entrepreneurship. And then we started developing a system that would tear down those barriers. And so at the heart of Launchpath, I would say, is the path to becoming a successful entrepreneur. And that goes all the way from finding your big idea, finding the idea that you're passionate about, that aligns with your company's actual strategic needs, and then going from there through what we would call a lean startup process all the way through to execution. So defining the path, integrating training into that path. So when I get to the step where I'm being asked to do something I've never done before, having web-based training at my fingertips so I can learn how to pitch my idea, learn how to develop a market test plan and execute on that plan and so forth. So there's the path, there's the guidance, there's the training. And then I would say the third big concept is creating the alignment between leadership and the entrepreneur. So those are kind of the core value propositions of the software. And then kind of around that, I mentioned earlier that it's not just a software product, it's a program. When someone signs one with Launchpath, we kind of are providing their entrepreneurship program for that. So there's several supporting services that we put around that to make it happen for our clients.
Cool. Hey, Carlos, is it time to dig in?
I think there's something that I'd like to know more in detail.
Okay.
There's something that I'd like to know more in detail.
Okay.
Okay, great. Specifically about the topic in this, and more specifically about the how to make it happen part. Okay, focusing on that. Mm-hmm. In that sense, how would you say that it? Or I'm sorry, let me go back and rephrase my question. Is there any particular scenario that you consider to be more fertile for entrepreneurship to happen? It is specific, for example, company culture, company environment, anything that has to do with how things happen inside of a company. Let me just give you an example of what I'm trying to say. There might be, I don't know, maybe some old school type of companies that are kind of reluctant to embrace the entrepreneurship idea, right, as opposed to more avant-garde companies, like especially in the technology space, that are more open to embracing these types of ideas. In that sense, how would you say that or what would you say that it would be like the ideal scenario for entrepreneurship if such a thing exists?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. It's really interesting, and the answer is interesting. It's honestly different than I would have guessed 4 years ago, or a little bit different. The thing that you might have guessed that I would say is the number one thing is that top leadership really has to believe in this. Okay, if the CEO of the company, if the C-suite of the company does not down deep in their heart believe in the potential of people, right? If they do not believe in their people and value innovation, I would counsel not to even start. Now, that said, what I find is that the farther you go up in the organization, the harder it is to find somebody who doesn't believe in innovation and believe in their people, right? I mean, real leaders, the people who end up being CEOs, they know these things matter. They know that this is ultimately how it works to build a great company, to build an enduring company. And so it is very, very rare for me that I speak to a CEO who doesn't get what I'm saying and value the concept. All right. So if you have that, I think the rest can follow. I would say that there are a lot of little things, like if you had two companies and you kind of had a foot race to see which one was going to be the most successful in terms of, actual return on investment or something like that, then a company that has, the more that the employees are kind of more capable, if they have more familiarity with innovation, if they have, let's say that 10% of your employees have had experience working in a startup before, you're going to be more successful than if none of your employees have ever been part of a startup before, right? So those things matter in terms of your ultimate level of productivity. But can you have a successful entrepreneurship program if you're an old school company? With Launchpath, you can, because we're bringing in all of the, we're bringing in the program that makes it easy for people who have never done that before. So, it's interesting. We have clients that are like very old economy, kind of industrial clients in, locations that are not the birthplace of innovation. And then I, today, in fact, I was talking to a person who most of their employees are former SpaceX employees. They're right in the heart of Silicon Valley. They are working on the most cutting edge technology in the world, but they struggle to actually make entrepreneurship happen because they don't have the program, So a very old economy, very stodgy old company can actually outperform on entrepreneurship if they get organized versus a company that has all the talent in the world but doesn't have the program.
This is very interesting that you say that, because obviously smaller startups are very nimble and agile in terms of innovation, but
right.
The large organizations often struggle with that, so it's left to a few people. But I think what you're saying is this empowers them to be able to institutionalize it. I know that Dulce had another question specifically about the program.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I get that Launchpad goes or moves along lean methodology. So what did you choose that into the workflow software?
Dulce, just to make sure I understand the question is, why did we choose to embed the lean startup methodology into the software?
Yes.
Got it. Yeah, so it's really interesting. Innovation is something that is so core to our civilization, right? I mean, all of us are walking around on top of this massive layer of technology that's been built up over the millennia, right? And all of that has come out of innovation, going back thousands of years to right now. But our actual understanding of innovation, of how innovation works, is really just in its infancy. One of the leading theorists on technology and on innovation is a guy named W. Brian Arthur. an economist from Stanford University. And as recently as 2009, in one of his kind of seminal works on this topic, he said, here we are in 2009, and in the very heart of our economy is this mystery as to how innovation works. Okay, and this may seem like, how is this answering my question? Well, if you look beginning in about 2005, there's been a real explosion in our actual theoretical understanding of innovation and the innovation process. The lean startup movement began in about 2005 with the publication of a book by Steve Blank called The 4 Steps to the Epiphany. There were some other early people kind of working in this space. Alexander Osterwalder published the book about business model design, and we all learned about the business model canvas. But since then, if you go on Amazon and you do a search for management books about innovation, and then you order them by the date of publication, there are 6,000 books, and the oldest one was published in about 2013. So there's been this explosion of real understanding of the theory and practice of innovation, and the current best methodology for managing innovation, which is mostly about how do we do this when it's so risky. We got something that has a 90% failure rate. How do we engage that without losing our shirt? The lean startup methodology is the current best known methodology. So we felt like a real key part of the value that we would bring to companies is by embedding that methodology into the software, into the program, so that if you're an entrepreneur and you've never heard of lean startup, or if you're the employer and you've never heard of lean startup, you kind of have this really smart thinking about how to manage innovation that you're doing just because it's built into the tool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I learned about Osterwilder at Cornell. What a fantastic market positioning tool. Plus, he's Swiss-born like myself, so I'm a big fan. But
there you go.
Is it time, Carlos?
Yeah, it is.
To activate the chatbot?
Yes.
Awesome.
It's our
ready? Ready? Here we go.
Hold on one second. Let me just clarify to Gray, to our guest, that don't try to hack our chatbot. Okay, it's unhackable.
It's integrated with Twitter.
If
you don't know how to use Twitter, you might as well just check out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let's activate the chatbot.
I'm ready.
Here we go.
If you have any questions
I have the red button.
Gray,
Easy red
button. Any questions for Gray, just look at our chatbot here. Go to Twitter. Okay, just go to Twitter. You know how to use Twitter. Most of us do, right? So here's our Twitter handle. You can look at it right here, right? So go to Twitter and ask the questions on Twitter. We'll read them back to Gray right here on the spot, and he can respond in the same manner. Okay, or just keep an eye on our website. The Twitter handle is going to be right there too. So that's it, folks. And please, kids, don't try to do this at home. Don't try to hack our chatbot. It's unhackable. You're going to get sued under federal law. So don't try to do it. Okay.
All right, deactivate it now.
Deactivate it.
Okay, here we go. All right, great. So it's amazing. We could talk for hours. We're coming up on time pretty quickly here, but I do have one more question before we get some audience question. So how far along are you with the product? Is this ready for prime time now? How are you validating new features, functionality, capabilities? Walk us through that process with us.
Yeah, thanks. Right, so I would describe us as being kind of in early scaling stages for our company. The product became commercially available in January of 2018. And so, here we are, it's October. So it's been, 10 months now that we've been going to market with our product. So we're onboarding our early clients and kind of building that out. The focus has shifted a little bit from just building the product to now marketing the product. And that's where we are. We were very happy to kind of before the commercial release of the product to find one of those early adopters that every entrepreneur prays for, who kind of bought into the idea when it was really just, you know, a picture on a whiteboard. And working with that company, we've actually, you know, kind of started beta trialing with them back as early as April of 2017. So their company has been using the product for a little over a year now, but our more recent clients, you know, the most recent one just came on board. Actually, Monday of this week was kind of their last deployment, you know, letting all of their employees on. So that's where we are in our journey.
Great, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Carlos, do you have any questions from the audience?
Not yet, Tulio. I'm pinging everyone here, but we're not coming. I think we're coming up on time, I guess. So I don't know if we're gonna have that. But I'm gonna keep an eye on my Twitter feed, because our Twitter feed.
Cool. So, can you tell us a little bit about the culture of your company? We're always asked that question. We're big on discovering what people are doing that's working for them.
Right.
You can share with us some of your guiding principles and why you've chosen it and why they're working for you.
Yeah. So there's a word that I would say is at the very heart of our culture that it's an ancient Greek concept called arete. And I think my favorite translation, there's, you know, like any any word from a different culture, and in this case from a different time, it's a little hard to get a perfect translation, but the translation I like is excellence with virtue is the definition of arete. I learned this word when I was a freshman in college, and it just inspired me way back then. And so yeah, excellence with virtue. And for the ancient Greeks, you could have had a horse of arete, you could have had a piece of cotton of arete, you could have had a human being of arete. We are trying to be a company of arete, and you know, I think that building something that is of true value, something that, you know, I think what I love about business is that it creates, you know, these huge win-win relationships, not only between the company and the customer, but between the employee, between the community, even, you know, you can have a positive impact on your competitors even by kind of raising the bar and energizing the domain with good behavior and good thoughts. So in a word, the heart of our culture is kind of built around this concept of arete, of excellence with virtue. And I think that bears out in kind of the way that we treat each other and treat our customers, try to do the right thing, right? So
I love that. Love that. Thanks for sharing that with us. Yeah. I'm going to pass it back to Carlos, who's going to wrap it up. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Yep. I just really appreciate the fact that your platform, your program is inclusive. Anyone in the organization can participate and can chime in, which again enables a lot more input and a lot more participation. No one feels like it's a special club to be an entrepreneur. So congratulations for doing that. Wish you lots of success. Carlos, back to you with some.
Well, thank you, Tulio. I guess that the only thing left for me to ask for now, Greg, would be simply, do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience based on today's topic? Anything you would like to leave them with to remember you by, or this conversation?
No pressure.
Yeah, no problem. I'll try to wax just poetic enough here. Now, I think, first of all, thank you again for the wonderful conversation. It really is a joy and an honor to be on your show. Just kind of parting words, I would say, first of all, to the aspiring entrepreneurs, if you are one of those people who is leaning in to your career, to your work, if you're one of those people who on your on the train ride into the office is thinking, how can I make something really big happen? I just want to encourage you that it is being done. It can be done. There's a lot that can discourage you. There are a lot of things that will get in your way. But hey, if you've signed up to be an innovator, if you've signed up to be an entrepreneur, grit and resilience has to be job one for you. So hang in there. There is a way, and you can get it done. I think it's probably getting easier every day to make that happen. So entrepreneurs, hang in there. Know that it's possible. If you're a leader, if you are the employer, if you have dozens, hundreds, thousands of people who are looking to you to point this organization in a good way, I want you to know that it's now possible for you to simply, affordably empower your employees to get aligned with you and make really wonderful big things happen, to take your company to the next level, and to just create an environment that you're personally proud to have created, right? You can now do that without creating distraction and swirl and confusion in your organization. So let's talk.
Absolutely, thank you so much, and I hear you. Pretty much. I was telling Tulio that I strongly resonate with everything you have said and everything you mentioned today about entrepreneurship, because DojoLIVE, right? It's sort of like we're in the same path. We're on that path. So, okay, well, thank you so much, Gray. The only thing left for me to do is to send you a big, heartfelt, warm thank you for having been with us, and of course. Thank the audience for joining us. Thanks, Dulce.
Thank
and
you.
I hope you enjoyed your first participation on DojoLIVE, Dulce. And Tulio, again, thank you. And folks, keep an eye on more interviews and more great conversations right here on DojoLIVE, connecting experts like you, in which we interview the tech luminaries and we talk about the hot topics of the day in technology. Just go to dojo.nearself.com and find out who's coming. There's a whole bunch of interviews that are going to be scheduled. I don't have the details yet because we're kind of fine-tuning the final quarter of the year. So keep an eye on that. Go to dojo.nearself.com, go to calendar, and make a note of them. Okay? So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. You have a wonderful day. It was a pleasure and an honor, all of you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.